Hello, fellow board members and members of the association. My name is Jose Carrasco. I'm the president for the association. With me to my right is Antonio Herrera, who is the officer rep. Over to my left is Mr. Paul Broom, who is the creator, I believe, of the bill. He is the man.
Just leave it at creator with a capital C. I kind of like that. That's how I wish to be addressed.
And then
Good morning, John D'Amato.
Mr. John D'Amato, attorney. Tony
Balsano in Frontex Public Relations.
And then Ms. Sarah Hernandez, who is the administrative assistant for the Albuquerque Police Officer Association. And first off, to start off, I want to thank Sarah for being here a little bit early. I don't know your work hours, but I think we kind of got you out of bed early.
She needs a union.
And thank you to the APOA for allowing us to use their boardroom to have this meeting. Very important meeting. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves once they start speaking about what their role is as far as assisting associations. I asked Mr. John D'Amato, who I've known for over 18 years, actually about 18 years. I've been in Mexico 18 years. I've known you about that long. Who's a prominent attorney and also union attorney for or assist APOA with their needs. And then Tony, who does marketing for the APOA and other businesses in New Mexico. So I introduce everybody. I'll let them introduce themselves once they start giving a spiel. But this meeting is specifically in response to the membership asking about collective bargaining. So I wanted to bring the people to the table so they could advise the entire membership, the pros and cons of collective bargaining, why we need to go to a collective bargaining, move towards that, and the benefits it would have in an association and its members. So to start it off, I'm going to push over to Mr. Broom. If you have questions, please let us know, type them up, and we'll answer them as soon as we get them.
Do you want to identify who's on? Who's on?
What do you mean?
Who else is on there? There's one other, right?
I only see
Rich?
one right now. Rich.
Libisher?
Libisher. Yeah, Rich Libisher, retiree.
Libisher. All right, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Uh-huh.
All right, sir.
So you want me to talk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. I'm finally being here. And I'm glad that Jose and Sarah and Sean were able to hook this thing up. My name is Paul Broom, B-R-O-O-M-E, and I work with the Albuquerque Police Officers Association, APOA, under contract as a collective bargaining consultant. I work at the bargaining table. I also help with some of their grievances, depending on what it is, and obviously I help here in terms of organizing the state police. I've been in this business for about 55 years. In this state as well as in many other states, New York especially, but also California, Texas, and a couple of other spots, Connecticut, a couple of other places where I've done some organizing. I was actually on the negotiating team for the unions that negotiated the first Public Employee Bargaining Act here in New Mexico, back under Bruce King's regime. And if you're not aware of it, that law had a sunset provision that stated that if the bill was not actually passed by the legislature, it would actually sunset and go out of business. Well, Governor Johnson became the governor at that time, and he decided he didn't want collective bargaining to continue. So there was a period of about 8 years where the unions were out in the desert. Some stayed bargaining, some did not. APOA did, for reasons perhaps we can get into later on. But then Bill Richardson was elected, and Richardson promised to resurrect the collective bargaining law. So then at that time, I was negotiating primarily for management, although with a couple of unions. And so I was asked to serve on the management negotiating team that negotiated the second law. And we negotiated the second law, got it done very quickly. The legislature passed it. Richardson signed it. And that law stayed into effect until this past year. And then under Governor Grisham, who was very, very pro collective bargaining, a major major changes were made in the collective bargaining law, which are favorable to organizing, to unions, to employees. She was very supportive of this. She signed that into law, went into effect on July 1st. So as we get into discussions here this morning, we can talk about some of these changes that will affect you if, in fact, you actually move to actually get certified as the exclusive bargaining agent for the state police officers. Let me stop there and turn it over, if that's okay, Jose, and then we can get back into some of the specifics later.
Yes, sir. John?
Well, good morning. My understanding of today's meeting was to address members' concerns or officers, state officers' concerns about whether they should or should not enter into negotiations to
Anybody else? Joe outside. I think Joe
Did I
outside
address
just
your concerns?
yes. You did. And Tony, you got anything before we go on? Okay, you want to speak, sir, or you want Tony to take over?
Tony could go. She hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
All right, Tony.
Sure. So thank you guys. Tony Balzano with Impronta Public Relations. So I am a co-owner in a public relations firm here in Albuquerque, and we specialize in crisis management and media relations. I have over a decade in working in television news here in this market, and then worked at the state government level and worked for Lockheed Martin, and then started my own company. So what we've done over the past 6 years is work with the Albuquerque Police Officers Association and really work with them to develop, as John was saying, the voice of the officer. So it's very, very important as an organization that you represent the voice of your police officers to the public, to the media, and to politicians. And so what we've done is work on defining what that is, what are the issues facing officers, how do we get that out into the public eye, how do we get politicians to pay attention, and how do we ultimately motivate change that is beneficial to the organization. So that's the kind of work that we've done over the past 6 years. We've been very successful at helping to get more money for police officers here in Albuquerque, changes in working conditions, et cetera. And we work hand in hand with both John and Paul on those issues, meeting every week to kind of discuss where we are and what needs to happen to help motivate that change. So we are sort of complementary to the work that they do in leading you guys down the path of a collective bargaining unit. So mainly what we help you do is develop what that voice looks like and how you speak together and create a message that works for your organization.
I asked last week when we met, I met with a new co-op that APOA and state police and some other departments around the state are getting together and creating. But I did speak to Tony last week and I asked her to give us like a price of what it's going to cost or what it would cost for us to hire her as to represent our department or our association in a marketing strategy style of relationship. And I'll get that to you guys as soon as I can, maybe sometime this week. Paul, you ready?
Sure. Okay. Let me just comment on a couple of things that John alluded to, and also possibly Tony too. I have negotiated contracts on both sides of the table for a large number, just about every public employee group that you could possibly have. In addition to police, I've negotiated for teachers in a number of states and for other school employees, which range anywhere from counselors to custodians, et cetera, department chairs, et cetera, down the line. I've negotiated not against, on the management side, with a group of lawyers who actually organized here in Albuquerque. And so those lawyers were organized, and we negotiated a couple of contracts with them at one time. And the issue of duty of fair representation comes up every once in a while, like it did with John was mentioning, and I think that was a very accurate way of describing it the way he did. What I try to do is tell people, when somebody comes to me and says, do you represent all employees? And my answer is, if they're in the bargaining unit and I have a contract, I have to represent them, period. But that's only half the question. The question is how do you represent them and what are you actually guaranteeing them? And what it comes down to be is basic due process when you're talking about discipline. I'm not talking about enforcing a provision of the collective bargaining agreement now. I'm talking about discipline. And what you're representing them, you are actually representing them in a manner that guarantees them the due process that they are entitled to under the law and under the contracts and under, in some cases, merit system ordinances, as we would have here in Albuquerque and in a number of other entities. I have found that the due process system, when used properly, separates the wheat from the chaff. If you have somebody who clearly has had violations of their rights, the due process system helps that person and makes sure that person is made whole. If you have somebody who is actually messed up and messed up badly, the vast majority of the time, I have found that those employees do not stick around. Do not because we didn't represent them, but because in representing them and in terms of going through the system, the truth came out. And that's what this whole process is all about, to give an equal say in terms of what actually has taken place. And if that person has messed up, and this goes not just for police, this goes for teachers, goes for college instructors. I didn't mention them, I've negotiated and continue to negotiate for college professors and instructors. Same thing applies there too. The same principle applies. But let me just now get into the nuts and bolts of the collective bargaining if you are interested in doing this. And I would strongly recommend to you that you give a positive ear to what Jose is saying regarding the need for collective bargaining. The law allows you and protects you in your right to organize. Knock on wood, maybe this will be the first one. I have never in 55 years during my organizer, I ever had an employee disciplined or retaliated against as a result of their involvement in organizing a union. I've had management try to do that, and we enjoyed dealing with that because the law is so very clear in terms of protecting employees and unions in their right to organize. It was a slam dunk, and they not only backed off, but they were pushed off, and the employees were made whole. But in the most cases, management doesn't even involve themselves in that type of behavior, especially in the public sector, because you have so many rights and so much due process rights, not just through collective bargaining, but through the law, Personnel Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what we need to do, if we're going to do this, we need to make sure that your executive board is solid behind this process. If they're actually a 51-49% pro collective bargaining versus con, don't do it. Make sure that you actually all, or pretty down close to all, want to pursue this process. That way, that kind of unity is going to be seen not only by your employees, but by management. And that's critical that they see that. And the next step is to make sure you identify who you want in this union. In other words, you want to frame your bargaining unit. The bargaining unit is the group of employees for which the union is responsible to negotiate a contract. Are you going to have just officers? Are you going to have officers and sergeants? Are you going to have officers and lieutenants and captains, commanders? I don't know what your hierarchy is, quite frankly. That determination should be done before you actually get the cards out. Now, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get everybody you want into the bargaining unit. You will get your officers into the bargaining unit, and the way the law reads, you probably will get your sergeants and lieutenants in there as well. But we have to see, that will come later when we get into the battles before the State Labor Board. Then we need to talk about getting authorization to bargain for them. And Jose already has a card. I am computer compromised, and I would have brought a copy of the card that I wrote up for this organization back a few months ago. But I haven't. I just have my computer in the computer hospital right now. and undergoing surgery. So we're going to get that taken care of first, but we have that information. And incidentally, that card, that authorization card, was run by two entities when we talked about this the last time. One was the State Labor Board director. I met with him, actually by phone, I sent it to him. I said, if we get cards signed by, these cards, I said, will you in fact approve it, these cards? And the answer was absolutely yes. In fact, he thought we were even more strict than we even had to be. The same thing with the governor's office. We ran the card by the governor's office as well. They're fine with the card. In fact, the word basically coming back from the governor later on was, where are the cards? And so she's waiting for the cards. She was waiting for the cards at that time. Now, something good has happened in the new law. If you are able to get 50% plus one, and you need to have more than that, 50% plus one of the bargaining unit to sign the authorization card, you can use what is known as a card check. You can avoid having an election. The State Labor Board will certify you as the bargaining agent. In other words, the union that represents the bargaining unit. If you can show that you have at least 50% plus one of the employees in the bargaining unit that you're seeking certification for, okay, actually serve as your bargaining agent. This is a major, major gain. Now, why is that important? Well, if you have a card check, you avoid an election. And during an election, there is an awful lot of skullduggery that goes on, including management touching bases with old friends in the bargaining unit saying, are you really sure you want this union? Are you really sure you want, not necessarily, not intimidation or not retaliation, but allegiances, challenging allegiances to the management people versus the union. And it's a false dichotomy, incidentally. It's a false premise. But nonetheless, it happens during elections. You'd have to run an election. You have to make sure you deal with those issues. So if you can avoid that and get yourself 60, 65, 70% of the bargaining unit to sign, those cards go to the labor board. They don't go to management. They are held confidential, and they only go to the labor board. Now, the one exception to that is this. If there is a challenge, a legal challenge to the cards, and that normally would occur only if you have close to the minimum. If you have a lot of cards, most people don't challenge anything. Then it's possible that the attorneys for management would see the names, some names on that card. It's possible. It doesn't happen often. It rarely happens. And the best way to avoid that from happening is get 70, 75, 80% of the people to sign the cards. Now, I'm going to stop there to see if there are any questions, because there's stuff we can go on and talk about. We'll have to talk about. But I want to make sure that we don't just overburden anybody with all this information. Jose, you have any other questions on it?
I don't. Rich, Joel or Chris, you guys got anything? Any questions so far?
No, sure don't. Thanks.
Cool. All right.
So,
Nothing else.
okay, let me go back and Sean Willoughby has just joined us
So
here too.
yeah, so hang on real quick.
The APOA.
I had Sean is the president for the Albuquerque Police Officer Association. I asked him to step in real quick and kind of give his little feedback on being an association and stuff. He's been the president for going on 6 years, sir, I believe. So I'll let him introduce himself, and you guys can ask questions and stuff. Sean?
Hold on. Okay, I'm trying to get unmuted. Good morning, everybody. We've been trying to set this up for a couple weeks, but we've been. Hold on. We got some feedback.
Okay, got
We've been trying to get this going for a couple weeks, but everybody's been extremely busy. I can't really say enough good things about becoming a bargaining unit and actually becoming an association. I think it's going to allow state police. I know that we've been kicking this idea around for state police for probably more than a year now. The PIBA law has opened up a pathway to get you guys into a more powerful position pretty seamlessly and easily. And I think that I understand that state police is a completely different police department than, let's say, the Albuquerque Police Department. But I think it's fundamentally the most important thing to understand that you know, APOA or APD, nobody's trying to benefit from you guys becoming your own bargaining unit. I think the entire state of New Mexico, when it comes to policing, benefits from you guys becoming a bargaining unit and having the ability to become a unionized police force. I understand that there are specific challenges, especially in state police, because you guys are a highly traditional police department. Never been an actual association bargaining unit. You've never been unionized. And a lot of people say, well, what are the pros and cons? I've had these conversations for a long time. What are the pros and cons? Why do we want to do it? I'll just give you one example. If you're paying attention to what's going on in the state of New Mexico, there's a political shift in this state. And the House of Representatives owns about 27 seats, progressive seats ran by EGOF. Lujan Grisham, if you look at her history, is not a huge fan of law enforcement. She's been using demilitarization and reforms on law enforcement as a political platform for some time. If you don't have a dog in the fight, then the dog is going to eat you, and you guys do not have an official dog in the fight. We all know some of the hardships that state police have to go through. If you stand up for yourself or you don't like something, you might find yourself in Jal, New Mexico by yourself, working the freeway. You just don't have the protections in your contract to protect your union officials. You don't have the protections in your contract to be able to take an actual stand. There are much more benefits than there are nays when it comes to being a bargaining unit. I believe that you're going to find yourself in a situation where you are more readily going to want to be involved politically. You guys are going to want to have a dog in this fight. I know several state police officers. I love you guys. I've had a great working relationship with your entire auto theft division. We've worked hand in hand. And you're going to find yourself in situations where you want to have a voice. Well, if you don't become a bargaining unit and you're not federally protected, your president of the union is going to lose his voice as things get more and more diversified in Santa Fe. You're going to have to take positions that your chief can't take because he is an elected official. So in order to become the voice of the rank and file, you need that protection. You also need to put some protections in your contract. There's a lot of traditions in state police. Some of them aren't very good. A lot of them are really, really good. A lot of the traditions that you guys hold close to the chest are things maybe you want in a contract so that they can live on beyond you for the next generation of state police officers. This is not a heavy lift. The changes in PIBA was a heavy lift. There was a lot of organizing and political action that went into the changes of PIBA. So it's relatively easy for you guys to become a bargaining unit. I mean, it's not going to be that hard of a push. But the benefits that you receive after making that push are going to feed your rank and file for the rest of state police's existence. I implore you guys to really take a serious look at this. Don't be afraid of the work. Get it done. It's the best thing that you can do for your rank and file. It's the best thing you can do for your traditions that you hold dear. It's the best thing you can do for the future of the state police. The way that the whole state benefits is that you're the state police. You can touch politicians at home because your jurisdiction is the entire state. So in Santa Fe, if we're having a problem with, oh, well, let's say something little like, oh, qualified immunity, we know that the representative in Las Cruces is the one writing the legislation for that. Well, state police has jurisdiction in Las Cruces and can help organize political action in Las Cruces to hurt that individual or to bring this fight to him at home with his voters and the people that are electing him to be a representative. We've seen this tactic used in AFSCME. The teachers union uses it all the time. It's highly, highly an effective political strategy. APOA can't do that because we're an Albuquerque union. I'm the only police officer in the state of New Mexico that runs an association that is full release. So I get to go to Santa Fe. My membership pays my salary. We have, they basically invest 4.5 hours of vacation to pay for my salary and the salary of the vice president. So I'm completely detached when it comes to who pays my salary than from the city. I can go to Santa Fe. I can go to Santa Fe all 60 days and lobby every single one of those days. I don't have to ask permission. Nobody gives me permission to do that. So it's highly effective. You guys need to really concentrate on what the future holds. You're going to need a due structure that allows you guys to protect your members all over the state. I know that you guys have PORAC. There are very talented attorneys in the state of New Mexico that can help protect your members. You're going to need to bring in enough money so that you guys can actually take care of each other. APOA doesn't benefit from you guys being unionized. Nobody benefits from you guys being unionized, but we all benefit from your organization becoming highly organized and politically active in the state of New Mexico. Cops are politically inept. They do not put in the work. They do not put in the money. We are not a bloodline union like firefighters. Most cops are highly conservative. They can't get between their values and what's good for the organization. That's something that everybody needs to work on and struggle with. But the more police officers we have that are engaged, the more dogs we have in the fight, the better the fight is and the more chances we have to win. That's how I look at this. I think, I don't know where we would be in Albuquerque if not for the APOA. I pay about $180,000 a year in attorney's fees. The DOJ has completely crushed this police department. You guys would be absolutely shocked to know how much work goes into a simple armbar takedown and a use of force. It would break any agency in the country. And if you guys are sitting on the sidelines and you're saying to yourself, well, we're state police, it's not going to happen here. It's already here, ladies and gentlemen. It's there. You're about to be reformed and you're about to not have a voice. They're about to change your use of force policy. Hector Balderas is talking about a statewide standard. A lot of this stuff is happening right underneath your nose, and you're not going to have a voice because you're not an association, you're not a union, you don't have a contract, and you can't enforce these things. So you're either going to be part of the dog or you're going to be wagged by the dog at the end of the tail. And right now, things are changing in the state of New Mexico. We're getting deeper and deeper into a blue state. The progressive Democrats are beating conservative Democrats all over this state. And everybody says, oh, well, the pendulum, oh, that darn pendulum, we just needed to come back to it ain't coming back. We've been arguing about the pendulum for the last 6 years as we were being reformed in the city of Albuquerque. Read our policies, read our contract, look at the things that we've been through and the fights that we've had. That pendulum's not coming back. And right now you have an opportunity to get a dog in that fight. And it's a powerful dog because you're the state police. I can't say enough, what are the negatives? The negatives are you're going to have to take a position and it's kind of scary. When you take a position that's against your chief because he's an elected official and you take a position that's against the governor who signs off on your raises, it gets a little bit hairy. When you're a political organization and you guys have to make a determination, I fight with my board all the time. My board are the ones that had me endorse Pierce for the governor's race. That wasn't the smartest play. We knew he wasn't going to win, and we knew we didn't like Michelle. We should have just stayed out of it, but we just pissed off every freaking Democrat in the state, which makes it harder for us to go to Santa Fe. So these political decisions are going to happen. You're going to be put in bad situations that make you feel uncomfortable, but such is life. represent your people, be the voice of the state police. You got a good president. Jose comes from APD. He knows how this world works. We've worked with him a long time. We will extend our hand to help you in any way that we can, whether it's using our office, using our Zoom meetings at the Union Hall, whatever you guys need, and whatever we can do to help you and facilitate you to get organized and to garner the power that you guys need and that you guys will be able to get. It only benefits the entire mission. So we've got a good working relationship with state police. We always have. I got a long history with Jose and your previous president, and I've got a lot of friends that work at state police. Hopefully I answered some questions. If you guys have some questions for me specifically, please let them rip.
Anybody, Rich, Joel, Chris, and Vaughn, you guys are still on, so you guys got any questions? Am I muted? Yep, I'm muted. Rich, Chris, Jeremy, and Joel, you guys are the only ones on. Do you guys have any questions so far?
No, I'm good right now. Thank you.
Jose, are these board members?
Nope, good here.
Just members.
Just members.
Yes, sir.
Did they hear? Was I muted? Oh, okay.
I think they heard you. I've got a couple.
No, sir.
items that
No
they-
questions here.
Joel, you good?
Yes, sir.
Hey
Amazing
guys,
speech.
I have, so I know that you are getting questions or you have questions. Like, now's the time. Like, please spare my feelings. You're not going to offend me. You're not going, I mean, I'm not gonna get all hurt and get triggered. I'm not gonna run away crying.
I have a question.
You have questions, let me know. Got a question from John D'Amato.
So I'm on the board of the directors of the State Police Union, and one of our officers is accused of molesting 12-year-old girls while on duty. And explain how we represent that person or don't represent that person.
Okay, so the question is, if you didn't hear, you have a bargaining unit, the state police bargaining unit. One of your members is accused of molesting 12-year-old girls on duty. What does the union do? Well, in the Albuquerque Police Officers Association, I would be working tirelessly to get that individual to resign. That individual would probably be at the end of arrest, in custody. We would try to get him to resign. If we get him to resign, then we're not on the hook, right? We're not on the hook for representing him in his termination process or at the LEA board. Because the truth of the matter is, if he says, no, I'm not resigning, and you have bylaws that give every single member certain benefits, well, then you're responsible for ensuring that due process is upheld, right? So if he wants a representative or an attorney in his disciplinary procedure in internal affairs and in his lauder mill or in his appeal, if he gets terminated, you're on the hook. You're going to be paying for that, whether they're a good guy or a bad guy, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. If you start singling out and picking this guy or that guy, you're going to get yourself sued faster than your head will spin. In a situation like that, in the APOA, we try to we think it's the best for them to just move on and to resign. When they're allowed to resign, then they're not on the hook for an appeal. They're not on the hook for representation. 90% of police officers that get caught with their hand in some kind of a cookie jar, they're willing to resign almost immediately. So that being said, it goes both ways. You're responsible not for representing good cops or bad cops. You're responsible for the process. There is due process. It's this novel idea that even Democrats today are saying it's so estranged when it comes to law enforcement. You're responsible for adhering due process. Did they get their target letter? Did they get their fair shot in internal affairs? Did that go? What is your process? And did that process that's basically based in your contract, did that get adhered to? Or did they undercut the process and just execute this individual because it was politically expedient? That's what the union does. They make sure that everybody has a fair process and everybody gets a fair shake. But in a situation like that, we would probably do everything we could to get that individual to resign so we didn't have to spend any money. And that person just exited the building stage left.
Another question. I'm a sergeant with state police. I sit for my lieutenant's test and I miss out. I come to the union saying it's fixed, it's favoritism. I want you to represent me on my promotion.
Okay, so the question from John Diamato was, I'm a sergeant testing for lieutenant. I didn't get the lieutenant's test. It's fixed. I come to the union. I want you guys to sue on my behalf. The APOA doesn't get involved in that. We have been involved in that in the past, and we have agreed to not get involved in promotional processes in the future. And it's really incredibly important to understand that there's a difference between what is a bargaining right and how you enforce your contract and getting pushed into every single civil litigation case on the planet. No matter what your due structure are, I know how much you guys pay in dues. You need to pay more in dues. That is a simple fact. You guys do not invest in the union. It is an insurance policy. You're paying more for Starbucks coffees and cell phones than you are the most important insurance policy of your professional career in a time where it's not great to be a cop. So we don't get involved in every single civil litigation process that our members bring to us, whether it's my sergeant's picking on me and it's a hostile work environment, or I don't think that the sergeant's lieutenant process was fair. As long as they're following a process and there is a process, we would encourage them to sue the department on their own accord, because we simply cannot afford to get involved in every single civil litigation case that our members bring before us. It would financially break this association. So we have a huge separation between those two worlds. There are circumstances where, I'll give you an example. In the city of Albuquerque, if you have a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree, you get associate's degree will give you 2.5 points for your sergeant's test. A bachelor's degree will get you 4 or 5 points for the sergeant's test. But when you go to take the lieutenant's test, they don't give you points for your associate's degree, only a bachelor's degree. So we were approached several years ago by 6 or 7 sergeants who did not get their associate's points for their lieutenant's test. The APOA has a stipulation within our bylaws that will give members up to $3,500 for civil litigation if approved by the board. We gave those members the $3,500. They went into a class action against the city regarding those 2.5 points, because every single sergeant would have been a lieutenant if given those points that they got when they were a sergeant. They ended up losing that lawsuit. They failed. They did not win. They took the next test and they were successors to become lieutenants. So there are circumstances broadly that we may get involved in some type of class action, but we do not take every civil litigation case because we just simply can't afford it. All right. Any other questions? You guys got anything for me? The camera adds 10 pounds. I'm much thinner than I look.
And I'm much better.
All right.
Hey, thanks, Sean.
Was much fatter.
Appreciate it, Sean. Thank you. So real quick, guys, any questions so far? Rich, Joel, and Jeremy still on? Nothing? No questions? And I think you missed it, Jeremy, is Tony from Imprompta is here. So if you have any questions for her, please let me know. Send me a message or something. I'm going to kick it back to Mr. Broom. He's got a couple more things.
Just very briefly, if you decide to move on this, Sean covered a couple of things I was going to talk about in terms of due structures, etc. And to be prepared to be actually a professional union, you have to have professional dues. But the other thing is this process could move very, very quickly if you decide to do so. We would have the cards distributed out to site reps in hopefully every site. Okay.
We have no site reps, so I would have to be going out there.
All right. Oh, well, Jose mentioned he would have to be the one doing it, but frankly,
What is that?
The way the bylaws are structured is we only have, right now, we only have one officer rep, which is he's attached to training in Santa Fe, and we have no other reps. So what I'm going to do is, and in the bylaws, it does.
Don't you have sectors in the state?
We have districts, but in the bylaws, it does have that we're allowed to have reps, but I don't know when it's been allowed or not. So I think, I mean, not that it has not been allowed. It's just, I don't know when's the last time somebody volunteered for it, but we've been getting a lot of interest. So we're going to open it up to site reps and stuff, but yeah,
Amend bylaws.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
But, okay, we could get the cards out very, very quickly, as fast as Jose could get them out, or as fast as you could restructure to get site reps to help out on it. And have those things signed, probably sent back by email to whomever, it would be Jose. But we will check that with the labor board to make sure that they will accept PDF signed authorization cards. I suspect they do, and I suspect they will. But we could do that and then have those cards brought to the labor board with a certification request as quickly as possible. So this could be done fairly quickly if you are interested in moving forward on it. That's all I have, Jose. I just wanted to make sure those were covered, okay?
Could you guys hear? Could you guys hear? No. I don't know. It seems like it's muted, like on top.
I'm on mute.
It's good.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
No. You've got a green screen around online.
Oh,
So
oh,
it
okay.
shows that you're speaking.
Okay. So just real quick, I got a chat. Hang on. I got a message. Board, thank you for moving on this. Okay, hang on. Okay, so that was a statement to us. It wasn't a question. But he did. Thank you, Jeremy. I think that message was meant for the board, not for the people here. So, but one thing that I will tell you is Sergeant Vaughn, he did state that our future is very troubling if we don't get this work done, and he will help however he can. So, thank you, sir. So real quick on Imprompta, on Tony, I was when I was with APD and I was part of the association and the board. I was all about saving money, like I am right now, man. I'm all about watching our money, and if I see issues with money being not necessarily stolen, but stolen and or misappropriated or wrongly used, I'm the first one to step up and say negative. We're going to do something about this, and I have been. I've been watching our money. However, when they came to us to hire Imprompta, I don't know how much it was back then. It wasn't that expensive, but to me it was expensive because it was our money, and I was totally against it. And my thinking was, we're going to have somebody coming over here and run Facebook, and which we all can do, and other stuff. So I was 100%, maybe even 200% against Imprompta, and the board elected to hire them. The stuff that they did after that made me eat my words. They are a very good company. They're a necessary asset to any kind of company or any association. And I want Tony to touch up a little bit more on what she brings to the table or what her company brings to the table, because, and Sean, if you can also hit on some of the things that they did for you guys, because I honestly believe in this. I mean, I didn't go to school for this. I didn't go to school, period. I have part of a bachelor's degree, not all the bachelor's degree.
Don't undersell yourself.
But I have experience. But these guys, I want Tony to touch up on it, because what they bring to the table, man, it's very necessary. And also, I know Sean and Paul hit up on it a little bit on it, is that we need to raise our dues, guys. We need to raise our dues. First off, we're getting ready to fight, man. We're getting ready to fight for our lives. They take away qualified immunity. We have no money in the bank, man. You can kiss our careers, our professions goodbye. So that's the hard fact of becoming a union, a collective bargaining unit, is that we need money to fight, man. We have no money. Our fight is going to be very limited, and I guess the government has deeper pockets than we do, man. And they're going to bring their guns, and we're going to be out of it. So I need you guys to think about that, man, because we're going to have to hire people like John D'Amato to be on our team. We're going to have to hire people like Paul Broom, like Tony, to be on our side. So that's one thing that we have to think about. And I'm not asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars in your own investment. I'm asking at least 1 hour's pay per officer, per pay period. That's it. And also, Jeremy Vaughn has been fighting this fight for the longest time, is to get 1 to 2 members, possibly the whole board, full release and paid for by the association, man. The APOA association they pay 4.5 hours, I believe you said, Sean, of vacation time per year per member. They have almost twice the officers we have. So I believe if we pay 8 hours per member per year, that will allow us to get two, maybe even 3 people on the board, man, working full time for you guys. So I'll turn it over real quick to Tony first, or Sean, whichever one of you guys want to speak first.
I'll go ahead and set the stage for Impronta and Tony Balzano. So we understood that we had a deficiency, right? Because we're fucking cops. We don't know how to talk to the public. We don't know what the public wants to hear. We don't know how to get our message across to people the way that it can resonate. We don't know anything about the true impact of messaging and how to change a conversation publicly. We went with a company called Ripe to really do a deep dive analysis on our organization. And Ripe Consulting is a company we've used in the past for publications and for messaging. And at the end of that meeting, we had a consultation with this company who said, I think you guys need professional PR assistance. So they introduced us to Impronta. I was 100% sold on the idea because I knew we needed this type of assistance. We get into situations constantly. You guys as police officers and members of the union that you currently have are constantly saying, well, you should say this, well, you should do this. And we want you to, well, where have you been? And how come you, well, when are you going to get this out? We need to tell the public. Well, it's a lot harder than it should be, or than it seems. So we started doing business with Impronta, and it started very slow. She did actual focus groups with our members. She identified what our strengths and weaknesses were. She identified what our members wanted from this union, and she started to create a brand. Every business has a brand. What is important to you? What is your mission statement? What do you stand for? What are you expected to accomplish? So after about, I'd say, 9 months of work in messaging and focus groups and developing a brand, we started to get to work. Every single thing, and I can't even believe it. I mean, we sat down with Impronta in the very beginning, and she said, well, what are your goals? I said, we want to be the voice of the rank and file. We want to be public figures in this community. We want to earn top pay for Albuquerque police officers in the state of New Mexico. We want. Every single want that we had was accomplished within 5 years. And I knew that we were winning when I was at a grocery store and I was standing behind a family who was talking about a heinous crime that happened inside of Albuquerque, and the conversation amongst individuals that were in the line where, well, Albuquerque police are so understaffed, they're not making enough money. And I couldn't believe the thousands and thousands of stories and the messaging and staying on task and staying on point actually worked. We were able to change the conversation inside of the city of Albuquerque. If you ask a resident in the city of Albuquerque, how are we going to tackle crime? They will tell you independently, it's because we don't have enough officers and we need to hire more cops. Well, how do you hire more cops? Money. You have to pay them better. Right? I'll take cops from everywhere in the state. I don't care. I don't care if it's state police. I don't care if it's Laguna. It doesn't matter to me. If we're paying high, we're going to take cops from everywhere because we need cops in Albuquerque. That being said, the messaging worked. Impronta works. We don't know how to deal with the public. We don't know how to message, and they helped us become professional messaging. Right now, we're trusted. We're viewed as honest brokers. We don't pull any punches. We don't really play politics. We have endorsed progressive Democrats and highly conservative Republicans. If you support Albuquerque police officers or you support policing in general, you're going to get our support, period, point blank. It's really not that complex. So everything we've set out to accomplish and then some has been accomplished with Impronta. I personally wouldn't do this job without having their assistance. I don't think we would be nearly as effective. And I'll turn it over to Tony to tell you a little more in depth about what she's done for the APOA.
Geez, you guys are
Boom.
like makes me nervous. So what I would say is that Impronta, we work hand in hand with our clients, no matter who those clients are. And it's really, really important that being successful means that is a partnership. It is as much Sean's work and effort and focus and commitment and dedication to the message, to the mission, and to those goals that gets us there. It's not Impronta that does that. I help, I guide, I give direction, I give focus. I get you stories, I get you in the newspaper and the media, I get you in front of the people that you need to be in front of, but it's really the work of your association that gets you the success. And it is work, it is hard work, it is being very, very committed to what your goals are. It's being very, very committed to success at all costs, even when your members are unhappy, even when the public might not understand, even when the media doesn't get it, it's staying the course. And the APOA has done that over the last 6 years in painful times, in tough times, and when it wasn't easy. They did that. Sean stood up and said unpopular things that his members were unhappy with at times. He stood up and did media when he knew that the call was going to come from the mayor's office, that they didn't appreciate what he had to say. He did it anyway. He did it because it was for the greater good of his association. And those are the decisions that have to be made in order for you guys to be successful. Like I said, we're only just part of a team. We can't do it all. We can't do it without Paul. We can't do it without John. And we can't do it without a really committed board and leadership from your association to make this happen, because like I said, it is a lot of work. But what we offer is strategy. So we offer you strategy to be successful. What does that look like? It's different for every organization. It's different for every group that we work with. Sometimes it's a lot of work. Sometimes it's a little bit of work. And it's hard to know right now with you guys where you are until we kind of walk down this process, right, that Paul's talked about, to know what the work is for you guys right now, right? What are your goals? What do you want to get accomplished? How do you see yourselves in 5 years? What does that look like? That's a conversation we have to have in order for me to determine how does Impronta get you guys to that place, right? How do we help craft that vision for you? And that's what we do. We literally build very strategic plans based off of your goals, your needs, and the brand that you want to develop. And we say, this is the path forward. How does this work? And then we work with you hand in glove all the time, anytime you need us, anytime something happens, a member gets in trouble for raping a child, the first phone call should be to me, right? If we're working together, so that I can say, this is how we should handle it. John will take the legal stuff and I will help you with what the media and the public has to say. Those are the kinds of conversations that we have, right? Anything that has to do with your membership and being the voice of those officers, that is what we help with. That's what we do. And like I said, it's different for every single one of our clients. I've never had a client be it's not a blueprint. You're going to be different than the APOA. The APOA is different than my other clients. And so it really is about what you guys want to accomplish and how we build that roadmap. And so we'll work with you guys on that. And we can work with you guys before you can put us on, pay us or get involved. I'm happy to provide that insight to you guys, even in the short term, so that you can start to see your path forward and what that looks like for your brand and your goals. And then you guys can, come to us when you have the money, when you've done that work. We're happy to help guide that path for you. Does that help? You guys have questions? Yes. Okay.
Looks like we have Rich, Mike, Tom, Joel.
Jose, can you hear me? Jose, can you hear me?
Okay, sorry.
We did it
The host
again.
muted
Yeah,
us.
the host muted.
Jose, can you hear me?
Rich, Joel, Mike, Paul, Jeremy, do you guys have any questions so far on what Tony said from Imprompta or Sean?
Hey, Jose, can you hear me?
Nothing.
You guys are not a talkative bunch.
So,
I
Jose,
just want information, man. Just soaking it in. Go ahead, sir.
I just want to do a little bit of follow-up with Tony said and give you one of the advantages of having an association. A lot of times, probably more than I even realize, a problem will start to surface in the field and we'll contact Sean and Sean will talk to Tony. And before it even becomes a problem, they can put stuff in play to fix it. Rather than no association, the problem surfaces, people are affected, and then you're behind the curve trying to fix a problem that already occurred. So I talk about, for those of you listening, I mean, if you want to read it, read it. But if not, let me allude to it. It's a book called Left of Bang. Love that book. As a police officer, it should be required reading. What I've seen in the past with different union administrations, the problem would blow up. We would be right of bang trying to fix the problem. What I see now more than ever is that the union officials, the president, Tony, the staff, the area representatives get to the left of the bang. Before it blows up, they fix it, or they try to make every effort to fix it. And when it does blow up, they can look at the membership and say, we tried to address this, city went ahead with it, and now we have to take action. So it's really an undefined process, but it's probably more often used than anything I've ever seen with the APOA. And even with Rio Rancho, I represent Rio Rancho also. They get left of the bang. And with the assistance of Tony and Sean's communications with management, a lot of problems are avoided. And I think that's one of the unspoken benefits that you'll reap as an association.
Jose, this is Tom. Can you hear me?
There's also one other added benefit. When you're involved in public relations and you have a team that helps you in public relations, it starts to get the attention of people that are in power, right? There's not a single politician in the state of New Mexico that doesn't know Imprompta. There's not a single person in that world that doesn't understand that this company is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to PR and messaging and getting and relationships. It's no different than any other business. It's just like this. I mean, you guys are state police officers. I'm sitting across from the president of your union in the APOA hall because of a relationship, because we're common, we're all cops and we're all brothers and sisters. We're going to do whatever we can for each other. Well, this is the same shit that happens in PR. So what you're buying is the intelligence, the history, the professionalism that comes with having somebody that comes from that world, and the relationships. But I will tell you this, when APOA tells management, you can make a good decision or a bad decision, but if you make a bad decision, we're going to crucify you publicly. We're going to release everything, and it's going to be a bad week for the Albuquerque Police Department. They know beyond any doubt that when I say that, we have the ability to do that. So it gives you more credibility. It allows you to be a little more dangerous. And these are the types of things that you get when you have a real due structure. When you're investing in the organization and the organization is investing in your success as an organization, those are the types of things that come with that type of investment. But before, we never had that. Right? We were begging reporters to come. We were trying to do Jose remembers we were trying to do press conferences. Half of the board was like, hell no, I don't want to be on TV, hide my face. The other half was like, I don't know if we should be doing this. Everybody gets scared. Well, we flipped that in Albuquerque. Now they know when we say we're going to jack you up publicly about this circumstance. And if they don't make a good decision and we actually do it, they know that we have the ability to do that. And it scares the shit out of them. So it's just another benefit.
We had Tom. Tom wanted to ask a question. Tom, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I apologize. I was a little late getting in on the meeting, so I don't know what I missed prior to my question. So you may have already covered some of this. If you could just fill me in.
Okay.
Couple clarifications, some misinformation that's going on out there in the field. If you guys could, one of you guys there could, or ladies there could clarify this information, what is correct and incorrect. One is, with a union, if say you're involved in an OIS and you are charged criminally, a union will drop you and you have zero representation from the union. Where our association, that is not the case. Our association cares less. They are going to represent you with what you're paying in your dues. So if you could clarify that for one. Two, when it comes to raises, that it's my understanding on the collective bargaining, basically every year when you go to the table, you're starting over from zero. So can somebody chime in on that? Is that true that, you could actually go backwards next year or backwards in 2 years or backwards in 3 years? Because that's going to directly affect people's retirement. So if we could get some clarification in that. The other thing is, there's been some concern out in the field, especially like on a supervisor standpoint of, we already know it's difficult to get rid of the bad apples in law enforcement as it is. And a lot of people view a union as it's only going to be harder to get rid of those bad apples that should go away. If maybe Sean could chime in on that, seeing as he's already on that side, and give his point.
Yes, sir. I'm going to let Paul Broom answer your first two questions, sir, or maybe three, and then I'll also let Sean address.
Yeah, Tom, this is Paul Broom. I spoke on a couple of these issues earlier, but not as specifically as you raised them, and I appreciate very much you bringing them to our attention. Number one, not only will the union do it, they represent those employees. If they actually have a union and we have members of the bargaining unit, if an employee faces the possibility of discipline or faces the possibility of contract violations, we have a duty of fair representation, a legal duty of fair representation to represent those employees. That does not necessarily mean that if you have somebody who has committed a crime, done something egregious, etc., that the due process procedure won't weed it out and weed that person out. But that person will be guaranteed the due process to make sure that if that person is innocent or if that person actually needs the assistance, we can actually provide it. And we must provide it. Otherwise, we could be sued on that. That's number one. Insofar as salaries are concerned, that's bogus also. The fact is what you have in your contract, you have what we call recurring salaries or recurring compensation in your contract, whether that be hourly rates, whether it be overtime, whether it be shift diff, whatever it might be. And that is the base from which you bargain the next time. And another thing that's in the collective bargaining law, which is very helpful on this, and Sean and I are faced with this right now. There is a provision in the law called an evergreen clause, meaning that if in fact your contract expires and you still don't have a contract and you don't have an increase in pay at this point, and right now we're faced with this because of the COVID disaster that has hit the state and this country. Everything that you have in your contract, all the terms and conditions of employment that you have in your contract by law continue in full force and effect until you reach another agreement later on. Management may not take them away from you. I hope that answered your question. Did I miss anything?
No, thank you. Thank you for the clarifications.
Thank you for the question.
The other thing, the other thing I'd like to address is that because you're a bargaining unit doesn't mean you have to call yourself a union. I mean, you don't. We are the Albuquerque Police Officers Association. Yes, we're a bargaining unit. A bunch of our Republican advocates or our Republican politicians will say, "Oh, they're just another union," right? So you can still continue to call yourself an association and be a bargaining unit. You don't have to change your name to State Police Union. You don't have to do any of that stuff. The only thing we used to have a situation called fair share, right? Fair share is where some of our membership would pay half dues to get, we forced them to pay due. They didn't want to be members. They paid half dues. They have a certain level of expectation and representation that comes with fair share. After the Janus decision 2 years ago, fair share went away. So you can't, this is a consensual relationship. You don't have to be a member of the union, and you don't have to pay dues into fair share. That being said, we don't offer some benefits to folks that don't pay due. In the City of Albuquerque Police Department, we've got like 94 to 95% full dues participation, right? The individuals that don't pay dues in our organization don't take benefits like PORAC. They don't take benefits out of our bylaws. Now, granted, when one of those officers gets into an officer-involved shooting, I'm not like, oh, sorry, bud, you don't pay dues. I still go out there and I represent them, and I'll still bring an attorney to make sure that they're protected. But this is also a business. There is a fine line where the vast majority of people are paying into the benefits that I'm providing somebody who expects to get it for free. And now that we don't have fair share and we expect individuals to be a part of the union, and even though we have 95, 96% full dues participation, they don't get certain benefits in my organization that full dues paying members get, like PORAC. And I encourage those members. You don't hurt my feelings. You don't have to be a member of the union. You're not going to hurt. I don't take it as a personal attack, but you better have some damn protection, because this is not the profession or the time in our profession not to be taken care of legally, and not to be not to be helped. You have to take care of yourself. If you're not going to invest in the insurances provided by an association or a union, then you need to single-handedly go out and pay for those benefits. We brought PORAC. We brought PORAC to state police when we brought them into New Mexico. We had meetings to try to get sure that everybody in the state is protected. It is the best company in the country for on-duty or off-duty in the color of law officer-involved shootings. Dominic Perez and Keith Sandy, you guys know Keith Sandy. He came from state police. Dominic Perez has about $680,000 of legal fees for the time when he was charged with murder. After two of our officers were charged with murder, I think Keith Sandy has like $450,000 of legal fees. They'll never pay that money back. They've mortgaged their homes. Their parents are financially destitute, to fight for their freedom and to fight. It was the legal fight of their life, and it affected every single person in that entire family. After that happened to two Albuquerque police officers, I had officers that would not do this job without the insurance provided under PORAC. So we brought them PORAC. There are other insurances that we're looking at, from civil liability insurance to Albuquerque. Everybody's getting suspended to provide reimbursement for suspension hours if you get in trouble. All that stuff costs money. The other thing that you mentioned is these officers that are bad apples. In my experience, are there officers that are bad apples? Well, yeah, there are. And the Albuquerque Police Department, any police department has no problem dealing with the bad apples. Just because you have a contract and you expect the department to follow a process doesn't mean you're protecting bad apples. You're protecting a process. But there are far more police officers, in my personal experience, that are political footballs than bad apples. They get into a use of force, they shoot at a motor vehicle, they deal with looming, the study of human performance is not weighed in. Police officers are an easy political football. A politician would rather say, off with his head, here you go, public, we fired him, even if the police officer didn't do anything wrong. Bad apples, our industry's never had a hard time dealing with bad apples. Your contract does one of two things. Like, for instance, we're in contract with the DOJ. It's called the settlement agreement. It's the city of Albuquerque's job to abide by the contract. It's the DOJ's job to enforce the settlement agreement. Same thing with your contract. It is their job. This is an agreement between you and the state of New Mexico. Our contract is an agreement between us and the city. It's our job to enforce the contract. It's their job to abide by the contract. So even though we have these huge stipulations and we want officers to do everything perfect, but we're the bad guy when we hold them to their rules and regulations. Management has to fall within and abide by the due process established by the contract, just like an officer has to follow SOP and be held accountable. So I don't think that we have as many bad apples in policing as most people think. And when there is a bad apple, we all know that guy that's a bad apple. It wasn't too long before they got dealt with. So those are my 2 comments to your questions. Hopefully I answered the questions, and we'll go on.
Thank you.
Tom, you good? Did that answer all your questions, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate everybody.
No, I mean,
Is that right?
you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Right.
He has to unmute himself if he wants to.
Oh, yeah. it's okay.
Tom, can you unmute yourself if you're good?
Yeah,
Or if you're
everything's
not
good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Can you hear me?
He's unmuted.
He should.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
You good, Tom?
Yeah, there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, everything's good. Thanks for everybody, and thanks for your answers.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. John, I have a question for you, sir.
Yes,
It's been brought to me asking if we're paying PORAC. Oh, sorry. You good? If we're paying PORAC, why do we have to have another attorney as part of our, like on our board, or not on our board, but like on retainer? So in
Sure.
in other words, why hire you? Why have you here if
Well-
we already got PORAC?
well, if you have PORAC administratively, PORAC's going to represent the officer. You need some representation, legal. Doesn't have to be me. It has to be an attorney who advises you as a nonprofit law enforcement association. The client is the association. PORAC, although has an agreement with the association, its duty goes to the member who's involved in a shooting or a critical use of force or a crime. There are 2 separate roles. One is case specific and one is general legal counseling. I mean, you should have a good relationship with your banker, your priest, and your lawyer. That's it. I mean, but I mean, you really do. There are only 4 or 5 PORAC attorneys. That member has the ability to decide which PORAC attorney he or she is going to use in a criminal case, officer involved shooting, use of force, any criminal charge on duty, as Sean indicated. But the attorney for the membership or the union has a different set of objectives and responsibilities. And, it's just like a corporate lawyer, nonprofit. You should have somebody on retainer. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir. Absolutely does. Thank
So,
you.
one more comment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so on that note, I have seen not just police officers, but clients generally who know more than the lawyer. And so a lot of times I'll get called after the shit hit the fan and they go pro se or without a lawyer and say, hey man, fix this. So while I'll respect the vast knowledge of state police officers, unless they have a law degree and understand the workings of the rules and the cases and the things that traditionally work and don't work, at least have somebody on call for consultation.
Yes, sir. Sir, you have anything else?
Nothing further, sir?
Paul?
No,
Or
I'm
John?
good. No, thank you.
Unless you guys have something else, Paul, Rich, Joel, Mike, Tom, Jeremy, you guys have anything before we close up?
Nope, I'm
Tom
good.
here. No,
Anything?
I'm good. Thanks.
Rich, looks like you're on.
Yes, hold on.
Okay, Rich, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. So as far as those of you guys that just joined us, or Jeremy, you were cut out a little bit. Why APOA? Why be here at the APOA office? One thing that I did, and I did say before running, or when I was running for president, was that I'm not trying to bring APOA or APD to the state police. State police is its own department, its own animal, and in no way or shape or form will I try, or was I trying to turn the NMSP into, or SPA into the APOA or APD. However, because of what's been going on and the trend going throughout the country to take qualified immunity, I've been approached by several people that want to become a collective bargaining association or a union. Since these guys have a vast set of experience, these guys are the pros in the state of New Mexico as far as union as representation and stuff. Paul and John and Tony are experts at what they do, I believe. The association, APOA association, is an expert in what they do in representing their officers and getting their officers the best pay possible and quality of life. And they do many things that people can feed off of. And when I asked them if I could have a meeting here without a heartbeat, man, they no skip, just right here. Let's do it when you want it. And I said Tuesday. Even Sarah, who's their admin assistant, that's what you are, right? Graciously allowed. She's tired right now, man.
You're the CA.
Yeah, she's vast knowledge, man. She's awesome. She's been here since I can remember. But it's people like that make this the APOA go, and it makes it function and it makes it work. The state police officers were in a different environment where we're statewide, we're so spread out, but we still can come together as one and have one voice. And that's the thing is, if we do decide to become an association, a collective bargaining unit, a union per se, that's what we have to do is become one voice. Not everybody's going to agree on what we have to say, on the board has to say, but once something is agreed upon, that's what needs to be done and said is, and if we stand together, we're stronger together than when we're apart. So I'll be closing up. This meeting was being recorded, so that way we can forward it in an email so everybody else can see. And if you guys have any questions, please email me or any member of the board or call us, and we'll gladly answer all your questions. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, guys. Yeah,
Sorry, Paul.
no problem.
Antonio.
Thank you, guys.